hoping to get through about 290 last time, and we got through about 170. So we're going to pick up where we left off the other day on 173.74. Remember, we talked about the photograph that Moody shows Harry of the original Order of the Phoenix, which, if I remember right, had something like 22 people, and roughly 50% of those are dead or incapacitated when you consider the two Longbottoms, okay, Frank and Alice. We mentioned on page 174 two brothers being included, Gideon and Fabian Pruitt, who we will find out later are Molly Weasley's brothers. Okay, we find that out later because Harry is given something in Book 7, at the beginning of Book 7, that belonged to one of Molly Weasley's brothers, because it's wizarding tradition that when a man turns 17, he's given a watch. She gives him a watch, okay? And the watch is dented or battered. She says something to the effect of, he didn't take very good care of it. Could be something else is involved there. There could be another reason why the watch is battered. And it might have something to do with how he died. Anyways, Moody shows him these pictures, and kind of like this is an encouragement to Harry, or this is a nice thing for Harry to see, one, his parents and all these people. And we see Harry at the bottom of 174 say, I've just remembered something. I haven't packed any. And he starts to leave, okay? Has he remembered that he hasn't packed something? No. Why does he want to leave? Yeah, I mean, this is a depressing thing. Again, half these people are gone, okay? What's going through Harry's mind? Is there a new Order of the Phoenix? Yes, there is. How many of the people in the New Order of the Phoenix does Harry know? Or, put it another way, how many people in the New Order of the Phoenix is Harry close to? Almost all of them. Who is he not close to? Mundungus Fletcher, because he's a rotten thief. Kingsley Shacklebolt, okay. Snape, thank you. Daedalus Diggle, Hestia Jones, some of those kind. But then think of the others who either are members of the Order of the Phoenix or they're very close to being members of the Order of the Phoenix. Well, who does the latter include? The entire Weasley family. Arthur and Molly are now in it. Bill and Charlie are now in it. Fred and George? Not quite. Yes, they're 17, but no, they're not in the order. Ron? Obviously not. Ginny? Obviously not. Are they close? Yeah. Okay. Hermione? No. Close? Yes. Sirius? Definitely yes. Lupin? Definitely yes. Does Harry get to be close to Tonks? Definitely yes. Okay, and so we can start writing down the names of this Order of the Phoenix and jump to the end of Book 7. And how many names get written down in red? Quite a few of them. Even some that we don't expect to see. Okay? So, Harry makes his way upstairs, and he comes across Mrs. Weasley. And she's trying the ridiculous charm. Ridiculous. Okay? Bottom of 175. He sees Ron spread-eagled on the ground. But, wait a second, Ron was downstairs. Mrs. Weasley? Ridiculous. Crap. Ron's body changes into Bill's. Notice, spread-eagled. What does the spread-eagle mean? Avada Kedavra. Okay? Everybody, we're told, who gets hit with the Avada Kedavra dies like this for some reason. Eyes wide open, not a mark on their body, not a drop of blood, except for one person we're going to see. Okay? So, ridiculous. Mr. Weasley's body replaces Bill's. No, ridiculous. Dead twins, dead Percy, dead Harry. Get out of here. Let someone else. Lupin comes running in. Sirius comes running in. And Lupin tells her, Molly, it was just a boggart, bottom of 176. Just a stupid boggart. I see them dead all the time. In other words, it's not the boggart that's bothering me. Yes, the boggart is bothering her. Why does she see them dead all the time? What should be the first thing Molly Weasley does when she gets back home?
She checks that clock.
Louder?
She checks that clock.
Get rid of the damn clock. Or remove or tape over the spot that says in mortal peril. Okay? Why does she see them dead all the time?
Worried about it.
She's worried about them. Has she seen the picture? We're never told that she has. Was she in the Order of the Phoenix before? No, she was not. Neither was Arthur. Were they old enough to have been? Yep. So why weren't they? No explanation is given.
You could
Okay.
assume that she's heard her mother talk about
Okay, that's, and maybe she was just a couple years too young. Okay? But we're never told. She says to Harry, top of 177, I'm so sorry. What must you think of me? Not even able to get rid of a boggart. Now notice, how many days, not specifically, but round figure, how many days later is this after Harry's arrival and the big row that they have that evening at dinner over whether or not Harry should be told anything? It's not long. It's a few days. And Molly's like, Harry shouldn't be told anything. He's too young. And Sirius kind of channels his inner Dumbledore and says, Harry's done more than Harry's done more than most. And he's looking at Molly, and he's kind of implying, Molly, you haven't done anything. Harry still has that mind. I think Molly still has that in her mind. So that when she says this, she's saying, who am I to tell you what you can't do? I can't even deal with a stupid little boggart. Neville Longbottom could have taken care of that boggart by this point. Okay? Harry, don't be stupid. I'm just so worried. Half the family's in the Order, and what happened to the previous Order? Half of them were dead. It'll be a miracle if we all come through this, and Percy's not even talking to us. What if something dreadful happens and we never made up? That is, and we never apologized. And what's going to happen if Arthur and I get killed? Who's going to look after Ron and Ginny? Oh, there's Bill, Charlie, okay, Fred and George. Kind of sketchy there. Lupin. This isn't like last time. Why not? The Order are better prepared. Why?
They know.
They know what?
Voldemort's back. They've got the proper.
Okay, they know Voldemort's back, all that. Did they not know Voldemort was around before? Yes, they did.
They know what they're up against, and they know what they're doing.
Why? What do they have this time that they didn't have last time?
Experience.
What else?
Harry.
Close? Dumbledore knew the prophecy the last time. One, I fear, has left me forever.
Oh, that's not good.
They now have a spy inside. They did not have, they did at the very end, before Voldemort fell. How close to the very end? The very, very end. Okay. As we find out in Book 7. How much information was Snape able to pass on? He wasn't able to pass on enough information to do what? To save Lily and James and Harry, but you know. Come on, Molly. It's time you get used to start hearing it. Because Lupin says, we know what Voldemort is. She, What's he mean? Suck it up, Buttercup. He's back. No more of this, he who must not be named. I can't promise. Now notice what Lupin's saying here. I can't promise no one's going to get hurt. Nobody can promise that. Notice what he's not saying. It'll be okay, Molly. Don't worry. What does Dumbledore tell the students at the end of book 4? Voldemort's back. The sooner you accept that, the better off you'll be. What does he tell Harry? Or even Sirius and Molly about why Harry needs to tell him about what he saw at the cemetery? Before understanding, there has to be what? Acceptance. He has to accept what he saw. Only then can he really deal with it. Okay? So Molly's got to come to accept this truth. But we're much better off than we were last time. You weren't in the order then. You don't understand. Last time we were outnumbered 20-1 by the Death Eaters, and they were picking us off one by one. Are they outnumbered now? Yeah, they are still. Okay? Sirius, don't worry about Percy. He'll come round. It's a matter of time before Voldemort moves into the open. Once he does, the whole ministry is going to be begging us to forgive them. Why else, and it just hit me, why else does Sirius say, don't worry about Percy, he'll come around? Who's Percy acting like that Sirius might be drawing on here? His brother. Regulus joined the Death Eaters and then did what? Tried to unjoin. You know, you become a member of La Cosa Nostra, the Mafia. Do you become an unmember? No, the only way you do that is become the unliving. You die, okay? Unless you're entered into a federal witness protection program and you become somebody else. But even then, they find you, you're dead. Lupin. And if something happens to you, notice, he doesn't say, don't worry, nothing's going to happen to you and Arthur. If something happens to you, what do you think we do? Let them starve? Okay, do you think that's really a comforting thought to Molly? So who's going to raise who's going to raise Ron and Ginny? Werewolf. And somebody formerly accused of mass murder. Do you think Molly Still's maybe just a little bit unsure about Sirius? Okay. Harry goes up to his room, and his scar starts to just burn. Cut it out! And a voice from a picture on the wall says, first sign of madness, you know, talking to your own head. So we get introduced to Luna Lovegood, chapter 10. Harry has a dream. And in this dream, he sees Mrs. Weasley sobbing over Creature's dead body, watched by Ron and Hermione, who are wearing crowns. Why are they wearing crowns? Is it because they're prefects? Do prefects wear crowns? She never tells us. Never gives us an indication of what the crowns represent. Okay? And, again, Harry finds himself walking down this corridor to a locked door. Okay? So we're going to skip a bunch. They get on the train. They meet Luna. We meet Luna. We read some of what Luna is reading. Harry's hoping to impress Cho, just as what happens?
Neville's trying to, like,
Way to go, Neville. I'm personally, this is one of my favorite things about Neville. Too bad he didn't squirt the stuff on Cho and get her out of it. I don't care for Cho. Okay, so Sorting Hat's new song, 204, 205. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this because it is radically different and it's telling us an awful lot about what's to come in the next two books, or hinting at it at least. 204. In times of old when I was new and Hogwarts barely started, the founders of our noble school fought never to be parted. He introduces in the opening 4 lines this idea of parting, division, separating. United, notice, parted, the very next word, united. Why? Because those don't equal the same thing. They are diametrically opposed. United by a common goal, they had the self-same yearning to make the world's best magic school and pass along their their learning. Together, okay, together, we will build and teach, the 4 good friends decided, and never did they dream that they might someday be divided. Notice so far, parted and divided come at the end of lines, united and together come at the beginning of lines. Okay? For were there such friends anywhere, and doesn't this surprise you the first time you read it, as Slytherin and Gryffindor? Why are they such close friends? Is it because the qualities of the two houses are pretty close? In order to be bold and daring, what else must you show? Ambition. Okay. In order to be willing to do whatever it takes to get what you want, what must you show? Daring, courage. For were there such friends anywhere as Slytherin and Gryffindor, unless it was the second pair of Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw? So how could it have gone so wrong? How could such friendships fail? Not just dissolve, fail. Why, I was there and so can tell the whole sad, sorry tale. Said Slytherin. Okay, so we're going to get a listing of the schools again, of the houses. Said Slytherin, we'll teach just those whose ancestry is purest. Notice, just, purest, ancestry. Purebloods. Okay? Said Ravenclaw, we'll teach what? Those whose intelligence is surest. Notice, she doesn't put an adjective in front of those. She doesn't qualify those. He says, just, only. We're not going to teach anybody else. So, are there any mudbloods in Slytherin? No. Are there any half-bloods? No. Not if what the Sorting Hat says here is true. Says Gryffindor, we'll teach all those, what? With brave deeds to their name. All with brave deeds. Notice, not brave thoughts, they've actually done brave things. Okay? Said Hufflepuff. Why does Hufflepuff come at the end? Why are Gryffindor and Slytherin together? Says Hufflepuff, what? I'll teach the lot. What does Helga Hufflepuff mean by the lot? All of them. I'll teach the lot and treat them just the same. Okay? Notice, I'm going to pull out of the lot only those of pure ancestry. I'm going to pull out of the lot only those with the smartest brains. I'm going to pull out of the lot all those with brave deeds. I'm going to teach, Hufflepuff says, everybody. What is Hufflepuff not doing that the others are?
Discriminating.
Yes? What other word can we use instead of discriminating? She's not parting. She's not dividing. Each one of these is. Okay? These differences caused little strife when first they came to light, for each of the four founders had a house in which they might take only those they wanted. So, for instance, Slytherin took only pureblood wizards of great cunning, just like him, and only those of sharpest mind were taught by Ravenclaw, while the bravest and the boldest went to daring Gryffindor. Good Hufflepuff, what? She took the rest. What is meant by the rest? Go back in your minds to grade school. It's PE time. Teams have got to be formed. Who's the rest? The ones that nobody else wants. Hufflepuff, she says at the beginning, I'll teach them all. But she doesn't get to teach them all, does she? No. Because Slytherin takes the purebloods, Ravenclaw takes the brains, Gryffindor takes the brave. What does she get? What language does Dobby use to describe himself and others like him in Book 2? We dregs of the magical world. Hufflepuff gets the dregs. She gets the leftovers. Is it any wonder that Hufflepuff is the least respected house? And yet, who have we seen in Hufflepuff? Cedric. Is Cedric a dreg? Is he scraping the bottom of the barrel? No, he's not. Which house does Rowling favor? Is it Gryffindor? No, it's this one. It's Hufflepuff. Why? Because Hufflepuff doesn't. Everybody comes in like this. Everybody is a student of Hogwarts. And then they're sorted. And they're no longer a student of Hogwarts. They're Slytherin, Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, or Hufflepuff. Notice, Hufflepuff doesn't want that. She wants it to be like this. But the others do the dividing. The others do the quartering. So, good Hufflepuff, she took the rest and taught them what? All she knew. What's Gryffindor going to emphasize? Bravery, courage, chivalry. What's Ravenclaw going to emphasize? Test taking. You know. What's Slytherin? How to get what you want out of life, no matter what it costs to other people. Right? Thus, the houses and their founders retained friendships firm and true, so Hogwarts worked in harmony for several happy years. But then, discord. Okay, so you have harmony, but then discord. And I wish she had spelled it this way, since she does other things kind of like this. Discord, as in music, meh, sound. But there's another reason for doing it this way. Chord, as in the name Cordelia, Lear's daughter in King Lear. Okay? The core here, or the chord, comes from, if I can remember how to spell it, it's either C-O-E-U-R or C-O-U-E-R. Coeur, French, heart. See, this chord is related to card, as in cardio, cardiac. Discord, broken, damaged. What? Heart. There was harmony before, but now there's discord. Change this to this metaphorical image. The heart is made up of what?
4 chambers.
4 chambers. 2 ventricles, 2, the one that starts with A. Atrium. Okay? So what happens when you have 1, 2, 3 in discord? One's not working. You go into cardiac arrest. Okay? So Hogwarts worked in harmony for several happy years, but then discord crept among us, feeding on our faults and fears. Faults can mean personal failures, personal, problems in our character. What else can fault mean? I'm from California. California is riddled by fault lines. What do they do every now and then? They snap. Okay? So riddled by faults and fears, the houses that, like Pillars 4, had once held up our school, now turned upon each other and divided sought to rule. In other words, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, each of them sought what? Total control over the others. And for a while it seemed the school must meet an early end, what with dueling and with fighting and the clash of friend on friend. And at last there came a morning when old Slytherin departed. And though the fighting then died out, notice what the Sorting Hat is suggesting. It's all Slytherin's fault. We got along well without Slytherin. Why might the Sorting Hat say that? It's Gryffindor's hat. Is the Sorting Hat maybe, just maybe, a little bit biased? He left and what? Left us quite downhearted. It's not a complete heart anymore. Right? And never since the Founders 4 were whittled down to 3 have the houses been united as they once were meant to be. And now the Sorting Hat is here, and you all know the score. What's he mean by score? Musical score? Could be one reading of it. What else does he mean? The tallying. You can read the numbers, the signs, so to speak. Here's the score. I sort you into houses because that is what I'm for. That is the Sorting Hat's purpose. But this year, I'll go further. That is, I'm going to say a little bit more than what I'm supposed to tell you. Listen closely to my song. Though condemned I am to split you. Not divide, not part. Split you. Still, I worry that it's wrong. Who's the you? First years, literally. Who else is it? I mean, first years collectively, literally.
That's whole school.
Okay. What else is it, though? All the first years don't go up. And the Sorting Hat magically hovers above all of them and sends out, zaps. Each student has to do it. They've got to go up. They've got to sit on the chair in front of the whole school. And the sorting hat says, this person's a Slytherin. So what do you immediately know? Ambitious, cunning, will do whatever it takes to get what they want. Okay? What must the sorting hat do to sort an individual? And? Okay. And? So it takes a look at your brain and your heart and does what? It splits you. How so? Because it tells which of these is the greater part of you. So what is it doing? Jump to book 7. Well, 6 and 7. It's essentially Horcruxing. With this proviso, with this caveat. It's not putting a bit of itself into you. But it is doing what? It is dividing your soul and saying, this is the biggest part of you. And yet we get told in 6 and 7 what? The soul is meant to remain whole, undivided. So see what happens at the beginning of a Hogwarts education. Something unhealthy. Because a student is told, you are primarily a Gryffindor. So what does that mean? Hufflepuffs, losers. Laugh at them. Slytherins, enemies. Despise them. Ravenclaws, they're not us. So each house is told what? Us against them. And we are always what? Better. Never does any of the houses say, you know what, it would be better, really, to be a Ravenclaw than a Gryffindor. Because smarts is really what's going to get you ahead in the world. Never does that happen. Though condemned, I am to split you. Notice what the sorting hat says about its purpose. I'm condemned to do this. What does condemned mean? Damned with. He's damned with the task. The sorting hat is telling us what I have to do every year is not right. But that's my purpose. Still, I worry that it's wrong. Though I must fulfill my duty and must quarter every year, still I wonder whether sorting may not bring the end I fear. What's the end the sorting hat fears? Louder. End of Hogwarts. Why? Because a house divided cannot stand. That's why. Know the perils. Read the signs. The warning, what? History shows. Is Rowling talking about merely Hogwarts history? I don't think so. I think when she includes that line, she's telling her readers, think of also real history. For our Hogwarts is in danger from external deadly foes. Is it really Cornelius Fudge that Hogwarts is in danger from? Is it really Dolores Jane Umbridge? I mean, yes, to some extent. She is a problem. Fudge is a problem. Is that their big problem? No, it's not. And we must unite inside her, or we'll what? Crumble from within. I've told you, I've warned you. Let's let the sorting begin. Ron, that's a little different. Harry, yeah. Hermione, I wonder if it's ever given warnings before. Nearly Headless Nick. Yes. How long has Nearly Headless Nick been around to be able to answer that question? Over 500 years. He's heard a lot of songs by the Sorting Hat. Okay? So we see people sorted. And Harry's looking over at the Slytherin table, page 209, and he's thinking, and it wants all the houses to be friends? as he looks at Draco. Fat chance. Nick, well, you shouldn't take that attitude. I mean, peaceful cooperation. What was the purpose of the Triwizard Tournament? To foster international magical cooperation. Right? He says, I get along very well with the Bloody Baron. Ron, because you're terrified of him. Nick doesn't like that and kind of, moves off. So what else are we introduced to? Not only a new Sorting Hat song, but what else? A new teacher. What does this new teacher teach? Defense Against the Dark Arts. And who's the new teacher? Dolores Jane Umbridge. Look up, if you haven't, what the meaning of Dolores is. It's sad, for example, every Easter Friday, it used to be, the Pope would walk in Italy, in Rome. The Via, I think it's 2 L's, the Via Dolorosa, the way of sorrows. Via, way of sorrows. Why? Mimicking what? Christ's march from his trial by Pontius Pilate to Golgotha. That's the real Via Dolorosa, the way of sorrows. So Dolores, Dolorosa, sorrows. Umbrage, have you ever heard the phrase, I take umbrage at that? Means I'm offended. I'm angered by that. Okay? So we have umbrage interrupt, what's his name? Headmaster. Dumbledore, thank you. And so she gives a little speech. And Harry goes up to his room that night. Hermione says, well, that was illuminating. Harry's like, what, you actually, or Ron, you actually enjoy that? She said, I said illuminating, not enjoyable. What's the difference between the two?
Revealing.
It's revealing. And Hermione understands, she puts her gray matter to work. She listens to what people say. Ron, not having a lot of gray matter, doesn't, quite get it. Harry goes upstairs to his room for the night, and what do we discover has happened between last year and this year with Harry's roommates? Seamus Finnegan and his mother, what?
Believe the propaganda.
They believe the propaganda. They read the Daily Prophet, and they believe it. Does anybody else in Harry's dorm? Is Ron? Obviously not. Neville? Nope. Who's the other one? Is it Dean Thomas? He just kind of, takes a back off approach. So we meet Professor Umbridge, and I'm going to skip a bunch. So what kind of teacher is Professor Umbridge? Look at page 239. She goes up to the chalkboard, whiteboard. She waves her little wand, and we get this beautifully handwritten notice. Very nice cursive. Defense Against the Dark Arts, a return to basic principles. So she talks about how poorly it's been taught previously. And she starts off with the course aims, or what are called the course objectives. Why? Because every good teacher, supposedly, begins every class with, now students, this is what you're going to learn this semester. Course objectives. I usually intentionally do not include course objectives in any of my syllabi. Course aims. Understanding the principles underlying defensive magic. So what does that mean? Louder, Gail. Not defensive magic itself. In other words, it's theory, not practice. Okay? Learning to recognize situations in which defensive magic can legally be used. Theory, not practice. Placing the use of defensive magic in a context for practical use. Theory, not practice. So, she tells them to start reading. And Hermione's got her hand up. And so people start asking questions. And Hermione says, page 242, surely the whole point of defense against the dark arts is to practice defensive spells. Are you a ministry-trained educational expert, Miss Granger? She asked in her falsely sweet voice. No, but. Well then, I'm afraid you are not qualified to decide what the whole point of any class is. Is Dolores Jane Umbridge a ministry-trained educational expert? We know she's undersecretary to Fudge. She is now teaching. Does this mean she has an educational degree of some sort? It's what she implies. Okay? Jump to the end. What kind of teacher is she throughout the school year? Let's rate her. Let's do rate my professor. Okay? Is she Quirrell bad? Is she Lockhart bad? Or is she Lupin good? Or Mad-Eye Moody, a.k.a. Barty Crouch Jr., good? Because Barty Crouch Jr. was a damn good teacher. Okay? You got to admit that. Being a practitioner of the dark arts would kind of, go along with that. So where does she fall? She's about as good as Lockhart. We're never really told much about Quirrell, in terms of how he is as teacher. So, students start hands shooting up in the air. And she doesn't address them really unless their hands are in the air. Bottom of 243. Dean Thomas says about Mad-Eye, when Umbridge says, it is my understanding my predecessor not only performed illegal curses in front of you, he actually performed it on you. Dean Thomas. Well, he turned out to be a maniac, didn't he? I mean, mind you, we still learn loads. Your hand is not up, Mr. Thomas. No, it is the view of the ministry that a theoretical knowledge will be more than sufficient to what? What's the purpose of this class? To pass an exam. How many of you like classes where the whole purpose is solely to pass an exam? Rather than, maybe actually learning something real. I mean, what is the basis of high school today? Pass exams. Why? Because students who do well on the exams, on the state exams, mean what for the school? Guess what? Same thing applies here. Okay? Not in terms of an exam in this class, but every one of you, the semester you graduate, guess what? You have to take your senior, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a senior graduating exam. But guess what? That doesn't affect whether you graduate or not. You could go through that and intentionally put down every wrong answer. What does it do? It then reflects on the department that you major in. Okay? And the department can be penalized because its funding for the next year can drop. If that applies across the board to all the departments, there will be not so holy, hell to pay at the university level from its funding board, aka the legislature. Well, you're obviously not teaching very well because compared to this school, where everybody is above average, etc. All right? So she says, it's the view of the ministry that a theoretical knowledge will be more than sufficient to get you through your exams. They're owls, right? Ordinary wizarding levels. Which, after all, is what school is all about. Now, do you think J.K. Rowling has an issue with teaching to the exams? So, Harry says, what good's theory going to be in the real world? Top of 244, middle of 244. She says, this is school, Mr. Potter. This is not the real world. Bingo! There's the problem. So, what does Harry finally do? Stands up and calls her a liar. You're a liar. I saw Voldemort come back. He even uses the name. What is that in her book? Oh, he used a dirty word. There's another reason for detention. And he tells her to shut up. So, he gets sent off to McGonagall. And she says, you did what? I called her a liar. Yes, 247, top of 248. You told her he who must not be named. Notice she doesn't use the name. This is McGonagall. Yes, have a biscuit, Potter. He's thinking, what? She tells him, bottom of 248. Misbehavior in Umbridge's class could cost you more than house points and a detention. What? Potter, use your common sense. What's Harry's problem? He doesn't have an awful lot of that. Okay? So, she finally gets around to telling him, 249, middle of the page, for heaven's sake, Potter, because he says, I was telling the truth. Does our society want truth tellers? What happens to them? Are any of you familiar with a guy named Socrates? He went around asking questions, dealing with the truth, and what did his society do to him? They executed him. Why? Because he made people uncomfortable. We don't like to be uncomfortable. Our society doesn't want to be made to feel uncomfortable. Right? You need a fictional portrayal of this? If you've never read it, and I'm still thinking about whether or not I should add this as another extra credit option. Read Fahrenheit 451, which is all about people being made to feel uncomfortable and what happens to those who are making us feel uncomfortable. Or maybe not people, but books. I mean, what is one of the problems rampant around college campuses today? Safe spaces. Okay, you're really close to it. Why do campuses have to have safe spaces? Or, according to some universities, why are entire college campuses safe spaces? Because the real world is unsafe. Then students ought to be allowed to come here and feel safe. Feel safe how? Physically? Well, duh. Unchallenged. To not have their beliefs, to not have their ideology, to not have their precious little ideas questioned. Or, another way of putting it, skewered. Whatever those ideas, beliefs, values, etc. are, right? No, they are to be encouraged in those ideas, values, etc. Even if those ideas and values are, I'm going to bring up a dangerous term here, wrong. Wrong. Okay? So that you have campuses around the country where professors trying to say some of the things I have said in this class this semester would get hauled up in front of a disciplinary board. Or students who express some of the things I have expressed would be hauled before a disciplinary board and would be told, you have to take a 1-hour course in essentially re-education because that idea you expressed did what? It offended somebody else. You think I'm kidding? I am not kidding. Where students have been suspended for offending somebody else. And yet other students who are offended all the time don't go running to, some advisor, some dean, some bias response team that is an actual name on many college campuses. the bias response team. Because somebody has expressed a biased opinion. Not discounting the very fact that the bias response team is itself biased, you know. So, what does McGonagall tell Harry? For heaven's sake, Potter, 249, do you really think this is about truth or lies? It's about what? Keeping your head down and your temper under control. Why does she tell Harry to keep his head down? If he keeps his head down, it's not what? It's not a target. What kind of advice is she giving Harry? Exactly. Survive, Harry. Survive. Okay? So, he has detention with Dolores. And what's his detention? We've already talked about it. I must not tell lies. I don't know if when you guys were in grade school and such, even though he's not in grade school now, he's in the equivalent of high school. If you had to write lines, I had to write lines far too many times when I was in grade school because I would never shut up. But I was smart because we had chalkboards and we had those kinds of things that you could stick multiple pieces of chalk in so that you could write, literally draw lines so that you could then write in the lines. Well, I would put 4 pieces of chalk in that thing and put, I will not talk in class, and I would have 4 lines right there because the teacher was stupid enough to leave, okay? And did not recognize that. Hey, that all looks exactly the same. And it's wonderfully lined up and neat. That was not my handwriting, okay? So, he goes back for detention the next night. Must not tell lies. The lines get inscribed deeper on his hand. And she says, not enough yet, page 275. So he goes back how many nights? Every night for a week. By the end, it sticks. So that in book 7, he's going to show the new minister of magic what? The scar that says, I must not tell lies. Okay? We get to chapter Percy and Padfoot. Harry gets a letter from Sirius after he writes a letter to Sirius about what an old hag Umbridge is. Then Ron writes a letter to Percy, and he gets a letter back from Percy. What does Percy say, essentially, in that letter? He talks about several different things. What does he say, for example, about Umbridge? Perfectly delightful woman. I really hope you will reach out to her. Okay, what's he say about Dumbledore? Don't trust him, louder.
He's going to go down.
His star is falling. Okay, what's he say about Harry? Ditch him. Distance yourself from him. Okay? What's Ron do with this wonderfully informative and caring letter from his big brother? Okay? So, Harry sees Sirius. He appears in the fireplace, 301 and such. And Harry asks, is she a Death Eater? Talk about Umbridge. 302, Sirius. I doubt it. I know her by reputation. I'm sure she's no Death Eater. She's foul enough to be one. Sirius. Yeah, but the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. I know she's a nasty piece of work. You should hear Remus talk about her. Why? She drafted a bit of anti-werewolf legislation 2 years ago. It makes it almost impossible for him to get a job. Okay? So what does Sirius mean? The world isn't divided into good people and Death Eaters. Yeah, let me use a different phrase for Death Eaters to bring this into the cultural now. The world isn't divided into good people and... What is a single word term that gets bandied about in our culture to describe people you don't like, people you politically disagree with, people you culturally disagree with? They all become what? Okay, there's another term. Yeah, we'll use that one too. Racist and Nazis. I don't like you, therefore you're a Nazi. Walk me through that logical, argument again. I don't like you, I disagree with you, therefore you're a racist. Even though somebody who's accused of racism has never said a racist thing in his or her entire life. Okay? Why are they accused of that? Because I'm an anti-racist. And because I don't like you, that means, therefore, you must be the opposite of me. Okay? That's what he means. Just because you don't like her, Harry, doesn't mean she's a Death Eater. In other words, there is a spectrum between good and evil. Where's Dolores Jane Umbridge on this spectrum? Is she over, if this is the midpoint, is she over on this side? No, she's not. She is over here. Evil would be, Lord Voldemort. So if Dolores Jane Umbridge is here, who's farther along on this line? How about Lucius Malfoy? Is he over here? No, he's not. Where's Draco? He's probably here. Harry, he's over here. Dumbledore, over here. The perfect good? I don't know within this world. Would it be somebody like, James and Lily, who die protecting, who die sacrificing themselves? Right? We're going to see other people die sacrificing themselves, who make the ultimate sacrifice. So, the next chapter, 15, we get introduced to the Hogwarts High Inquisitor. Rowling does not choose her names accidentally. Why does she label Umbridge the Inquisitor? What bit of history, Sorting Hat song, does she want people to remember? Spanish Inquisition. Not a nice time in world history. Okay? Because what did Torquemada and the other members of the Spanish Inquisition essentially do? If you weren't for us, you were against us. And so, pull out the rack, pull out all kinds of wonderful little torture devices, and get people to confess so that they could die having confessed. Okay? So what is her job as High Inquisitor? What does she initially do, as I asked on the quiz, to the teachers or with the teachers? She observes their teaching, right? She is now supposedly qualified to evaluate all the teachers. Now, which of the teachers is she maybe qualified to evaluate? Grubbly Plank? Do we know anything about Grubbly Plank's background? Nope. How about Trelawney? How good a teacher is Trelawney? Come on, let's be honest. She's a quack. She's a complete fraud and charlatan. Okay? What about Hagrid? How good is he at care of magical creatures? Buckbeak's pretty cool. Thestrals are pretty cool. Flobberworms, blast-ended scroots. Okay? McGonagall? How long has McGonagall been teaching?
39.
I think we're told here 49 years. How long has Snape been teaching potions? In this book, 14 years. How long has Snape been teaching? Since the year Voldemort went away. How long has Trelawney been teaching? 15 years. From the time she makes her first prediction, Dumbledore's like, I better keep her close. Is she good? Nope. Okay. And she evaluates others. How long has Umbridge been teaching? A couple months. And she's going to evaluate McGonagall? Okay. So, he gets detention again. He gets sent off to McGonagall again, 318, 319. And she tells him, Potter, you must get a grip on yourself. Excuse me, it's Angelina who tells McGonagall that Harry's gotten detention again. And so she takes points from Gryffindor. Harry's like, it's not fair, you know. I'm already being punished by her. Why do you have to take points as well? Top of 319. Because detentions do not appear to have any effect on you whatsoever. No, not another word. Does Harry tell McGonagall about I must not tell lies? Nope. Does he tell Dumbledore? Does he tell anybody? Ron and Hermione eventually find out. Okay? So, we witness Umbridge come in and observe McGonagall. And what does McGonagall do? She puts her in her place. Okay? She really puts her in her place. So, it's in that chapter that Hermione, pages 326, 27, following, comes up with a great idea. What is her great idea? We're not learning any defense against the dark arts, so maybe we need to teach ourselves. And we need a teacher. Harry, you. He's like, what? Ron's like, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Harry can teach us. What does Harry do at this point, other than get angry? What's he say? 326, I'm not a teacher. Harry, you're best in the year. He goes, no, I'm not. You've actually beaten me. Hermione, no, you haven't. You beat me in third year, the only year we both sat for the tests. Ron, you know what? Top of the next page. I'm not sure I want someone this stupid teaching me. And he says, oh, let's see, Harry, what did you do? You saved the stone from you-know-who. Harry, that was luck, wasn't skill. Second year, killed the basilisk, destroyed Riddle. Yeah, but a fox hadn't turned up. Third year, fought off about 100 Dementors. You know that was a fluke, time turner. Last year, you fought off you-know-who. Harry, listen to me. Sounds great when you say it like that, but all that stuff was luck. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I didn't plan any of it. I just did whatever I could think of. That's the point. Okay? And they're sitting there apparently grinning because he says, don't sit there grinning like you know better than I do. I was there, wasn't I? I know what went on, all right? And I didn't get through any of that because I was brilliant at defense against the dark arts. And they're laughing now at him. And yet, earlier, back around page 167, when Ron and Hermione are made prefects, Harry goes up to his room because he's all pissed off. And what does he start telling himself? I've done loads of stuff Ron hasn't done. Where were Ron and Hermione with the Sorcerer's Stone? Where were Ron and Hermione in the Chamber of Secrets? Where were Ron and Hermione? Okay. So Hermione finally says, and Harry and Ron says, 328, we weren't saying anything like that. Ron says, we weren't having a go at Diggory. That is, we weren't saying Cedric died because he was stupid. Hermione just says, think about it. So Harry thinks about it, right? They go off to the Hogshead. Next Hogsmeade weekend. Hermione says she invited a couple of people. How many's a couple? 25. Including Harry, Ron, and Hermione, the total is 28. 338. Harry, a couple? Okay, so now you have 28 students in the Hogshead. What's the difference between the Hogshead and the Three Broomsticks?
Nobody can say the hot.
The Hogshead is a dive bar. It is a rough, tumble-down pub. The Three Broomsticks is bright and airy, etc. Okay? It can handle more people. The Hogshead is a small pub. They cram in there. So, what happens in this informational meeting? You got the one guy, who is it, Zachariah Smith, who keeps, shooting his mouth off. Fred and George offer to clean his ears with a long skewer-like thing, like from one side to the other side. And Harry has to admit, yeah, I've done this, yeah, I've done that, yeah, I've done this, yeah, I've done that. And Cho goes, ooh, and you got through the maze too, and ooh. Okay? So, educational decree number 24. These are really cool also, by the way, when you go to the Harry Potter studio tour and you see these big framed proclamations, all of them. All student organizations, societies, teams, groups, clubs, etc., henceforth disbanded. What does that tell us? She knows something. Okay? I'm going to skip a bunch again. Go to Dumbledore's army. How does Harry find the room of requirement? Dobby tells him about it. Where did Harry first hear about it? Dumbledore told him he was out looking for a restroom, and the room suddenly appeared. Okay? So they go into the room of requirement, and they come up with the DA, page 392, because Hermione says, we got to have a name, and we have to have a roll. Everybody signs their names. Got to have a leader, page 391. Cho, Harry's leader. Duh. And so they come up with a variety of names. Angelina, the Anti-Umbridge League. Fred, Ministry of Magic or Morons Group, like Fred. Cho, Defense Association, DA for short. Ginny, notice how Ginny just kind of subtly one-ups Cho, like, you're out of here, chick. Yeah, the DA is good, but Dumbledore's army. Why? Because that's what the Ministry of Magic fears. So they go with that. What do we see in Harry's first lesson? What do we find out about Harry's teacher? He's good. How do we know? Who actually performs the Expelliarmus charm? Okay, Harry's back's to him. But Neville still does it when he says, I was never able to do that before. He's like, way to go, Neville. Okay? So, Lion and the Serpent. We're going to skip most of. Hagrid comes back from where he's been. Hagrid's tale. Where's Hagrid been?
Into the giants.
Envoy to the Giants. What did Dumbledore tell Fudge at the end of the previous book? Send an envoy to the Giants. So Hagrid goes with Madame Maxine. How well does their visit go?
Not too well.
Why? Okay, one, because they're giants. Two, Death Eaters kind of beat them to it. Okay? But Hagrid doesn't come home alone. Brings his little brother. Let's pick up on, now we got time. So, Eye of the Snake. It's just before Christmas. We see Umbridge evaluate Hagrid, and they have another DA lesson, and Cho comes up and makes a move on Harry, and Harry freezes. He doesn't know what to do. And Ron's like, what, she molest you or something? And Hermione finally blurts out, 459, what Cho is feeling. Ron, one person can't feel all that at once. They'd explode. Just because you've got the emotional range of a teaspoon doesn't mean we all have. I love that line. Harry has another dream. He's asleep. Scar bursts open. He's screaming. Harry tells Ron, I saw your father. He's been attacked. They get McGonagall. They believe him. They go to Dumbledore, chapter 22, St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. What does Harry see in his dream, in his vision, let's say? He sees Arthur Weasley attacked by what? A snake. Okay. So that when he's taken to Dumbledore, Dumbledore has to, okay, slow down. From what perspective? Harry was always kind of looking, he goes, no, you misunderstand me. Were you seeing the snake from, Harry says, I was the snake. Dumbledore's okay. And so he starts talking to the pictures on the wall, telling them things to do. He tells McGonagall things to do. They get the Weasley children, and he sends Harry and the others back to number 12, Grimmauld Place. How does he send them? Portkey. What do we find out at the end of the book about portkeys? Only the Ministry of Magic can hand them out. Okay? Even though there was one at the end of the previous book that the Ministry of Magic apparently did not hand out. So, Arthur is safe, right? After a little while, we find out, pages 478. Dad is still alive, setting out for St. Mungo's now. Stay where you are. I will send news as soon as I can. And everybody just kind of takes a collective, though George says, still alive. That makes it sound. Next morning, later on that evening, it is next morning, Sirius calls for Creature for breakfast, and Creature doesn't come. Why not? We'll pick up in this chapter on 485, which gets us just a little over halfway. All right. I don't know if I'll have a quiz over the last third or not.